100 men, one sleeping guard, 60 seconds of cudgels. This is how Rome conquered the world, not with swords, not with shields, with a simple rule: sleep on watch and your brothers will beat you to death. They called it the fustuarium, the punishment of the cudgel, and it wasn't an execution. It was a lesson written in broken bones and shattered skulls. A lesson that every legionary learned on their first night in the wilderness. The wall never sleeps. The wall never blinks. And if you become a crack in that wall, the wall will remove you. Tonight, we're going to watch that lesson being taught. We're going to see how Rome built a fortress every single night for 500 years. And we're going to understand why enemies who attacked Roman camps after dark didn't just die. They died screaming, blind, trapped in ditches they couldn't see, impaled on stakes they couldn't remove, killed by a machine that never stopped running. This is the story of Rome's human wall, the greatest weapon you've never heard of. Marcus Aurelius Severus was 19 years old when he learned how Rome really worked. Not Marcus Aurelius the emperor, different Marcus. This one was nobody, a farm boy from Umbria who'd signed up for the legions because his father's debts were too large and Roman recruiters promised glory, citizenship, and land. What they didn't promise was what he was watching right now. A circle, 100 legionaries, armed with cudgels, thick wooden clubs, blunt and brutal. In the center of that circle, Titus Flavius, 24 years old, 3 years in the legion. Good soldier, strong fighter, about to die. The charge was simple: sleeping on watch. Third Vigilia, midnight to 3 a.m. The dead of night, when exhaustion was strongest and discipline mattered most. A tribune had found him slumped against the vallum, the wooden palisade, head down, breathing steady, asleep. The sentence was automatic. No trial, no appeal, just math. One sleeping guard endangered 5,000 men. Therefore, one guard would die. Centurion Gaius Marius stood outside the circle, 43 years old, face like carved stone, 22 years in the legions. He'd seen this done 11 times. He'd participated 8 times. He'd ordered it twice. "Form the circle," he commanded, voice flat, emotionless. This was procedure, not punishment. This was maintenance, not murder. The legionaries formed up. Marcus found himself in the circle. In his hand, a cudgel. Solid oak, weight maybe 3 kilograms, perfectly balanced for breaking bones. Titus stood in the center, not tied, not restrained. He could run if he wanted. But where? They were 200 kilometers from Rome, in Gallic territory. Running meant death by barbarians. Staying meant death by brothers. He chose to stand. The centurion raised his hand. Silence. 5,000 men watching. This wasn't entertainment. This was education. "Titus Flavius," Gaius called out, "you endangered your brothers. The punishment is death by the fustuarium. May the gods have mercy. Rome will not." He dropped his hand. The circle converged. Marcus had never killed a man before. Basic training taught him how to thrust a gladius, how to throw a pilum, how to march 30 kilometers in full gear. But this was different. Titus went down on the third blow, a cudgel to his knee. The joint shattered. He fell. Then, the real work began. Historical accounts don't detail the fustuarium much. They mention it clinically. Punished according to military law. Discipline was maintained. An example was made. They don't describe the sounds. The wet crack of a skull splitting. The wheeze of broken ribs puncturing lungs. The desperate animal noises a human makes when their body is being systematically destroyed by people they called friends. Marcus swung his cudgel, felt it connect with Titus's shoulder, felt the bone give way. Titus screamed, not words, just sound. Raw, primal. The circle kept moving, kept swinging. 100 men, 60 seconds. By the time Gaius raised his hand to stop, Titus wasn't recognizable. His face was gone. His chest was a caved-in mess. His limbs bent at angles that didn't exist in nature, but he was still breathing. "Finish it," Gaius commanded. Marcus looked at the centurion, looked at what remained of Titus, looked at his cudgel, now slick with blood, and something else, brain matter, bone fragments. He swung one more time. Titus stopped breathing. The silence that followed was total. 5,000 men. Not a sound. The lesson had been taught. Gaius walked to the center of the circle, stood over the body. "This," he said quietly, "is why Rome sleeps safely, because the wall doesn't blink, ever." He looked directly at Marcus. "Drag him outside the camp. No burial. Let the crows have him." Marcus and 3 others grabbed what remained of Titus Flavius, dragged him through the camp, past the tents, past the other soldiers, past the tribunes and the legates who'd already forgotten his name. They threw him in the ditch, the fossa, 9 feet deep, V-shaped, the same ditch he'd helped dig that afternoon. Titus's body tumbled into the darkness. By morning, the crows had found him. That was March 15th, 58 BC, Julius Caesar's campaign in Gaul, day 47. Marcus would never sleep on watch. Not once in his 25-year career. The lesson worked. But first, let's understand what Marcus had helped build, what Titus had died to protect. The Roman military camp, the castra, wasn't just a place to sleep. It was a weapon, a psychological projection of power, a daily demonstration that Rome could impose order on chaos, geometry on wilderness. Every single night, for 500 years, across 3 continents, the doctrine was simple and terrifying. Never trust the land. Never rely on natural defenses. Always build your own fortress, even if you're only staying one night. While Greek armies looked for high ground in rivers, while Gallic warbands just camped wherever, the Romans did this. March 29 kilometers through hostile territory. Full gear, 30 to 40 kilograms per man. Arrive mid-afternoon, exhausted. Then immediately start digging. Polybius, the Greek historian who embedded with Roman armies, was stunned by this. He wrote that Greeks avoided the labor of building camps, preferring to rely on terrain. But Romans turned their army into a construction crew the moment they stopped marching. The message was clear. We don't need your hills. We don't need your rivers. We bring our own fortress. For an enemy watching from the tree line, this was psychological warfare. You track a Roman army all day, waiting for them to tire, waiting for vulnerability. Then you watch them build a goddamn city before sunset. Perfect. Identical. Every time. The Roman defensive system had 3 parts: fossa, agger, vallum, ditch, rampart, palisade. First, the ditch, V-shaped, 9 to 12 feet wide, 7 to 9 feet deep. Archaeological excavations at York and Paderborn have found these ditches 2,000 years later, still preserved. That V-shape was deliberate, not just to make it hard to cross, to make it impossible to cross in the dark. Imagine, you're a Gallic warrior. It's midnight. Your warband is attacking the Roman camp. You're running full speed, screaming war cries, torch in one hand, sword in the other. You can't see the ditch. It's dark. The Romans put out their lights. You're running on pure adrenaline and rage. Then the ground disappears. You fall 9 feet. Land on your ankle at a bad angle. Bone snaps. You're at the bottom of a V-shaped pit with 50 other warriors who fell with you. Can't climb out. The sides are too steep. Can't see. Can't breathe. The guy behind you just landed on your chest. From above, pila, Roman javelins, raining down into the ditch. In the darkness, the legionaries can't see you. Don't need to. They just throw into the ditch. Physics does the rest. You die in a pile of your own warriors, at the bottom of a hole, never having seen the enemy who killed you. That was the fossa. The dirt from the ditch wasn't wasted. It became the agger, an earthen rampart. This gave the defenders height advantage. Crucial for throwing javelins, shooting arrows, seeing what's coming in the dark. The agger was reinforced with sod blocks, creating a stable platform. At excavation sites, archaeologists have found these ramparts still standing after 2,000 years. Roman engineering didn't mess around. On top of the agger, the vallum, the wooden palisade. Here's where Roman thinking got brilliant. Greek armies cut stakes on site. Romans carried pre-made stakes with them. Every legionary marched with 2 stakes, adding maybe 8 kilograms to their pack. But the payoff was immediate security. These weren't simple pointed sticks, they were engineered weapons. 3 or 4 branches, carefully sharpened, designed to interlock. When woven together, they formed what soldiers called the hedgehog. Dense. Impossible to dismantle quickly. If you tried to pull one stake out, the interlocking branches meant you'd have to lift 3 or 4 others simultaneously. Try doing that in the dark. While people are throwing javelins at your face, the Romans could build this entire system. Ditch, rampart, palisade, in 2 to 5 hours. A full legion. 5,000 men. Complete fortified camp before sunset. The process was military choreography. Meditores marked the site with colored flags. 2. 1/3 of the legion formed battle lines to guard. 3. 2/3 started digging. 4. Each century knew exactly where to dig. No confusion, no wasted time. 5. By dusk, complete fortress. This speed was a weapon. It meant the Romans were never vulnerable. March all day, fortress by night. No window of weakness, no opportunity for ambush. And it was psychologically devastating. Your enemy just marched 29 kilometers. They should be exhausted. They should be vulnerable. Instead, they're behind walls. Again, like always. The inevitability of it wore down opponents. Time was always on Rome's side. The longer the campaign, the more nights the Romans slept safely while you slept in mud, waiting for an opening that never came. But wood and dirt don't win battles. Men do. The physical walls were just the framework. The real defense was the human wall, the rigid, terrifying system of the Vigiliae. The night watches. The Roman night was mathematically divided. 4 watches, each lasting 3 hours, timed precisely by the clepsydra, water clock. First Vigilia, sunset to 9 p.m. Second Vigilia, 9 p.m. to midnight. Third Vigilia, midnight to 3 a.m., the dead of night. Fourth Vigilia, 3 a.m. to sunrise. The changing of the guard was signaled by the buccina, a curved trumpet. That sound became synonymous with Roman order. In Germania, in Judea, in Britannia, wherever Rome camped, that trumpet sounded every 3 hours. A reminder to enemies. The machine never stops. The watches weren't random assignment. Specific posts, specific soldiers, specific protocols. The system was designed to prevent fatigue-induced failure. 3 hours was calculated. Long enough to maintain alertness, short enough that exhaustion didn't set in. The Roman military had studied human physiology through trial and error over centuries. They knew a man standing guard for 6 hours will fall asleep. A man rotating every 3 hours won't. Simple, brutal, effective. But how do you prevent enemy infiltration? Germanic and Gallic tribes were masters of stealth. They disguised themselves, slipped through the darkness, try to reach the tents, and cause chaos. The Romans solved this with the tessera, a small wooden tablet with the knight's password carved on it. Here's how it worked. At sunset, the camp commander chose a password. Something simple. Mars. Victory. Rome. This password was carved on the tessera and passed through the ranks. Every officer memorized it. Every guard knew it. If you were moving through the camp at night, even if you were a Roman legionary, you'd be challenged. Who goes there? If you didn't know the password, you were an enemy. Immediate execution. This created a low-tech but highly effective encryption system. The password changed every night. Enemy spies from the previous night? Useless. Their intel was already expired. And if you lost your tessera? If you forgot the password? Flogging. Demotion. Sometimes death. The password wasn't just words. It was the firewall between order and chaos. Marcus drew the second Vigilia on his first night. 9 p.m. to midnight. Post. East Gate, with Decimus, a veteran of 7 years. Good man, patient. The sun set at 7:30 p.m. By 8, the camp was fully dark. The Romans extinguished most lights. Fire made you visible. Fire made you a target. In the darkness, the camp became something else. The sounds changed. During the day, orders shouted, equipment clanging, men talking. At night, silence, just the wind, the occasional cough, the distant sound of the river, and beyond the vallum, the forest, black, impenetrable. First night? Decimus asked. Marcus nodded, didn't trust his voice. You'll hear things, Decimus said quietly. Sounds that don't make sense. Your mind plays tricks. It's normal. What kind of sounds? Branches breaking, voices that might be wind, shapes that might be trees or might be men. Marcus gripped his pilum tighter. The javelin felt solid, real. Everything else felt wrong. The trick, Decimus continued, is to trust the system. You hear something? You call the tesserarius, the password officer. He verifies. You don't make decisions alone. At 10 p.m., Marcus heard it. A sound. Not wind, not animals. Footsteps. Soft, deliberate. In the forest beyond the ditch. Decimus. I hear it. They stood perfectly still, eyes straining against the darkness. The moon was new. No light. The stars weren't enough. The footsteps stopped. Silence, heavy, oppressive. Then, a whistle. 3 notes. From the forest. Answered by another whistle. From the west. Then the south. They're surrounding us, Marcus whispered. They're testing us, Decimus corrected. Seeing if we're awake. Seeing if we'll react. Should we sound the alarm? No, that's what they want. They want us to wake the whole camp for nothing, exhaust us with false alarms. Tomorrow night, when we're tired, they'll attack for real. Marcus's heart was a drum. His hands were sweating. Every shadow was a warrior. Every sound was a charge. But nothing happened. At midnight, the buccina sounded. 3rd Vigilia. Marcus was relieved. Decimus stayed. Good work, the veteran said. You stayed awake. You stayed alert. That's all the wall needs. Marcus walked to his tent, collapsed on his bedroll. Sleep was instant. He didn't know that 200 meters away, Gallic scouts had marked the camp's layout, counted the guards, noted the weaknesses. Tomorrow night, they'd attack for real. And Titus, the man Marcus had helped beat to death that morning, wouldn't be there to help defend it. Day 48 of Caesar's Gallic campaign, March 16th, 58 BC. The legion marched 31 kilometers. Harder terrain, more hills. By the time they stopped to build camp, it was already late afternoon. The Meditores marked the site. Same layout as always. Square formation, 4 gates, praetorium in the center. But the ground was wrong. Rocky, harder to dig. The fossa took longer. The agger was shallower, only 5 feet instead of the standard 7. Centurion Gaius Marius noticed, didn't like it. But daylight was fading. The choice was simple. Build a shallow camp or build no camp. He chose shallow. By 7 p.m., the walls were up. Not perfect, but up. Marcus drew the 3rd Vigilia. Midnight to 3 a.m., the dead of night. The same watch that had killed Titus. He reported to his post, North Rampart, with 3 other legionaries, Lucius, Gnaeus, and Quintus. Veterans. They'd done this hundreds of times. Stay sharp, Lucius said. Scouts were watching us today. If they're going to hit us, it'll be tonight. Marcus nodded. His hands were steadier than last night. Experience was a cruel teacher, but effective. The camp settled. 5,000 men sleeping behind walls. The watches changed. 1st Vigilia. 2nd Vigilia. At midnight, the buccina sounded. 3rd Vigilia. Marcus took his position. Pilum in hand, gladius on hip, eyes on the darkness. At 1 a.m., the Gauls attacked. No warning, no war cries, just silence, then violence. The Gauls had learned. They'd watched Roman camps before. They knew about the ditch. They knew about the palisade. So they brought tools, wooden planks, thick branches. They threw them across the fossa, creating bridges. Fast, efficient, 30 seconds. Then they charged. 200 warriors, maybe more. It was too dark to count. They wore dark clothing, no armor that reflected light, just leather and fury. Marcus saw movement, shadows flowing across the makeshift bridges. "Alarm!" he screamed. "North wall! Alarm!" The buccina blared. Not the 3-hour watch signal. The battle call. Short, frantic, urgent. Across the camp, 5,000 men woke instantly. This was training. This was doctrine. Sleep to combat ready in 30 seconds. But 30 seconds was a long time. The Gauls reached the vallum, started hacking at the stakes. The interlocking design slowed them but didn't stop them. They had axes, time, determination. Marcus threw his pilum, blind throw into the darkness. Heard a scream. Hit something. "Second rank. Pila," Lucius commanded. The legion behind them hurled javelins over the rampart. 40 javelins. Into the dark. Physics and probability. Some missed. Many didn't. More screams. Bodies falling from the rampart. But the Gauls kept coming. One warrior made it through the palisade. Huge man. Maybe 2 meters tall. Face painted blue. Sword longer than Marcus was tall. He roared something in Gallic. Probably death to Rome or freedom. The usual. Marcus drew his gladius. Training took over. Feet shoulder width, weight centered. Guard up. The Gallic warrior swung. Massive horizontal cut. Power over precision. Marcus ducked. Let the blade pass overhead. Then thrust upward. Gladius under the ribcage. Twist. Extract. The warrior looked surprised. He'd expected a fight. Got efficiency instead. He fell backward. Off the rampart. Into the ditch. Landed on the warriors still trying to climb up. "Hold the line." Centurion Gaius's voice cut through the chaos. He was on the rampart now. Sword bloody. Face calm. "They break or we break. We don't break." The legion was fully awake now. Cohorts were forming in the intervallum, that 200-foot safety buffer. If the wall fell, they'd fight inside the camp. But the wall hadn't fallen. The wall held. At 2 a.m., the Gauls retreated. They'd tested the wall, found it solid, lost maybe 40 men, gained nothing. As they melted back into the forest, Marcus heard something. A voice, speaking Latin, badly accented but clear. "Romans, we return tomorrow. Your wall will fall." Silence. Then Centurion Gaius laughed. Not a happy laugh, a knowing laugh. "Tomorrow," he shouted back, "we'll build a better wall. Will you bring better warriors?" No answer from the darkness. As dawn broke, they assessed the damage. The north palisade was damaged. 20 stakes broken. 12 Romans wounded. 3 killed. They'd been pulled off the rampart in the initial assault. And the Gaul Marcus had killed? They found his body in the ditch. Young, maybe 20. Same age as Marcus. "First kill?" Gaius asked. Marcus nodded. "Gets easier." "Does it?" "No," Gaius admitted. "But you learn to live with it." They rebuilt the palisade, deepened the ditch. By noon, the camp was stronger than before. That night, the Gauls didn't attack. Or the next night. Or the next. The wall had taught its lesson. Let's talk about something the Gauls didn't understand. The intervallum. That 200-foot empty space between the vallum and the tents. Polybius called it excessive. Early Roman reformers tried to reduce it, save space. But the intervallum wasn't wasted space. It was weaponized architecture. Function 1. Fire protection. Night attacks often involved incendiary weapons, fire arrows, burning torches. If those cleared the rampart, they'd land in the intervallum, not in the tents, not in the baggage train. The space was a fire break. Brilliant. Function 2. Deployment zone. When the Gauls attacked, Marcus and his cohort had time to reach the wall because the intervallum was clear. No tents to navigate, no obstacles, just open ground where formations could assemble. This became crucial at the Battle of the Nervi in 57 BC. Caesar's camp was surprised during construction. Unusual, since Romans almost never got caught vulnerable. But the intervallum saved them. Even with half-built walls, the legions could deploy inside the camp. They fought a defensive battle from the intervallum while the walls were being finished behind them. They won. Space was a weapon. The Romans understood this. But the real power of the Roman camp wasn't physical, it was psychological. For a barbarian watching Romans build the same perfect camp every night, the message was terrifying. We don't adapt to your land. We impose our order on it. The camp was a manifestation of Romanitas, Romanness, law, geometry, discipline, superiority. Gallic tribes lived with the land, built on high ground, used rivers, adapted. Romans rejected adaptation. They built the same camp in Germania, Gaul, Britannia, Syria, Egypt. Identical. Every time. The message: this isn't your land anymore. This is Rome now. And for Roman soldiers, the camp was home. The same layout meant you could wake up at 3 a.m., half asleep, and still find the latrines. Still know where your century was supposed to form up. Still navigate in total darkness. Familiarity was safety. Safety was power. Let's talk specific examples. Alesia, 52 BC. Caesar besieged the Gallic fortress of Alesia. But Gallic reinforcements were coming, maybe 250,000 warriors. So Caesar built two walls, one facing Alesia, one facing outward. His legions fought a two-front battle from fortified positions. The walls, built in weeks, allowed 60,000 Romans to defeat 330,000 Gauls, not through superior combat, through superior engineering. Germania, 9 AD. The disaster in the Teutoburg forest happened because Varus's legions were ambushed on the march, not in camp. 3 legions destroyed, 20,000 dead. But legions in fortified camps? Germanic tribes never successfully stormed one. Never. Not once in 400 years of trying. The Siege of Jerusalem, 70 AD. Josephus documented how Roman legions surrounded Jerusalem with fortified camps. The Jews couldn't break out, couldn't surprise the Romans at night, couldn't win. The camps strangled the city. Stone walls fell, but the Roman camps never did. That's the brutal truth. Rome conquered with shovels as much as swords. March 15th, 33 BC. Marcus Aurelius Severus was 44 years old, 25 years in the legions. He was a centurion now, led 80 men, had seen 47 battles, had built 9,125 camps, one for every night of his career. His hands were calloused from shovels. His back was scarred from carrying stakes. His knees were shot from years of marching, but he was alive. That was more than most could say. He stood outside his camp, another perfect square, another ditch and rampart, and watched new recruits learning to build the vallum. They were young, eager, stupid, like he'd been. One recruit, couldn't have been older than 19, asked him, "Centurion, why do we build camps every night? Seems like wasted effort." Marcus looked at the boy, saw himself, saw Titus, the man he'd helped kill on his second day. "Because," Marcus said quietly, "the wall never sleeps, and neither do enemies. You build the wall, or the wall doesn't protect you. Simple." "But sir, what if we're only stopping for one night?" "One night is enough to die. You dig the ditch, you build the rampart, you weave the stakes, and when your watch comes, you stay awake. Because if you fall asleep, he didn't finish. Didn't need to." The recruit understood. That night, Marcus drew the inspection duty. He walked the perimeter, checking guards, verifying passwords. At the third vigilia, he found a guard slumped against the palisade. Young, legionary. Name was Quintus, first campaign. Asleep. Marcus stood there for a long moment. Remembered Titus. Remembered his own cudgel, slick with blood. Remembered the sounds. He could report it. Quintus would die at dawn. The circle would form. The cudgels would swing. the lesson would be taught. Or Marcus grabbed Quintus's shoulder, shook him hard. The boy woke with a start, terror in his eyes. "I wasn't." "Yes, you were," Marcus said flatly. "You were asleep on watch. You know the penalty." Quintus went white. "Sir, please." "Shut up. Listen, I'm not reporting this, but you owe the wall. Understand? You owe your brothers. So tomorrow night, when your watch comes, you stay awake. You drink cold water. You slap your face. You do whatever it takes. Because if I catch you again, I won't wake you up. I'll call the centurion, and you'll learn the same lesson Titus learned." "Who's Titus?" "Nobody anymore. That's the point." Marcus walked away, didn't look back. The mercy would haunt him. What if Quintus fell asleep again? What if his section got overrun? What if 80 men died because Marcus had shown weakness? But he couldn't do it again. Couldn't stand in that circle. Couldn't swing that cudgel. The wall demanded sacrifice. But Marcus had already given enough. Marcus Aurelius Severus retired in 31 BC. Honorable discharge, land in Umbria, pension. He built a house, married, had children. Every night, before sleeping, he walked the perimeter of his property, checking, verifying, habits carved into bone after 25 years. His wife thought it was madness. His children thought it was ritual. Marcus knew the truth. The wall never sleeps, even when the war is over, even when Rome is 200 kilometers away, even when the enemies are ghosts. The wall is in your head now, forever. He died in 9 AD, 73 years old. In his sleep, natural causes, they buried him with his gladius, his pilum, and one wooden stake from a palisade he'd woven 40 years earlier. The stake was worn, weathered, but the sharpened points were still visible. The wall had been his life. It was fitting it followed him to death. Rome conquered the world with walls built every night for 500 years. 3,652,500 camps, give or take, each one identical, each one perfect, each one a demonstration that Roman order was inevitable. The fossa broke enemy charges. The vallum stopped enemy climbs. The vigilia caught enemy infiltration. But the real weapon? The discipline, the system, the knowledge that sleep meant death, that weakness meant execution, that the wall demanded absolute commitment. Titus died to teach that lesson. Thousands of others died to enforce it. Marcus lived because he learned it. The Roman Empire fell in 476 AD. Barbarians took the walls, broke the system, ended the machine. But the lesson remained. Civilization is a wall. It requires constant maintenance, constant vigilance, constant sacrifice. Let the wall crack and chaos pours through. Rome understood this, built it into doctrine, enforced it with cudgels and blood. The wall never sleeps. The wall never blinks. And if you do, the wall will remove you. That's the brutal truth of empire. That's the price of order. That's how Rome conquered the night. One ditch at a time, one stake at a time, one dead guard at a time. The wall won battles, but the wall had a cost, and Rome paid it in blood, every night for 500 years.